Hello there, it's Fiona again. Okay, so we are going to make a little dress. I know, this pink cloth, they describe it as lining if you go into, and I'm going to say that because they do have the best fabrics. They really do. Now, I've got a fleece here. Basically, all I'm doing is I'm nicking the armhole details out of it. I need it to be baggy because it literally is just a slip dress, and I need it to have armholes in. And it's a case of what can you grab. So this is 4-fold fabric. I have the fold along half of this. Sorry, there's nothing I can do. And it's literally straight down, and then I can think about decoration afterwards. Now the decoration I'm thinking of is I have binding for the neckline and the arms, although I think I want sleeves on it, so let's do that. So what we're left with is this shape, and it's quite a standard shape. There's nothing untoward about that, is that? We've all seen that before. So, yeah. I'm going to lay my fabric out again. And obviously I'm conscious of wastage. And I need 4 pieces, but 2 are on a fold. Does that make sense? So I've got 2 now, and I've folded it over, and then if I fold it over again, hopefully I can do my sleeves out of that. Make sense? Now if I go back to the fleece, you'll see that the sleeves are basically the same shape. So, yeah, we're in shop. And if I go back to the dress, I can see that I already have that cut. So if I use that as a guideline for my whole size, then I should be nearly there. I suppose in a way this would be better if I contrasted the colours, but you know, we're just going to make do. So I have lied down how spoiled am I that I have everything to hand when I'm working upstairs. And so that's basically the dress shape. And then I'm going to lay out the dress so that I have that curve. Yeah, I know, and that's what I've done here. So I've got that on the fold, and I have that curve. So I can adjust it slightly so it comes out more, but it's a good guideline, and then I can see that that's very much the same measure. And let's taper that in a little bit. So I suppose they may be half-length sleeves. They're quite long, but then I quite like that. And because I have folded the fabric in such a way, I now have 2 sleeves. Well, actually, if I cut along here, I now have 2 sleeves. Oh, failed! Okay, I'm just going to cut that again so it's a bit straight because I've gone all wonky. I know. Okay, so I now have 4 bits of fabric, and I'm all ready to go. Okay, this is the strap that I'm going to put underneath, well, the the chest line, as it were. So, I know. And I'll just adjust the camera slightly and then I'll get this all threaded up. Okay. Say hello there. I have all my bits and I've got my machine all set up. Ooh, I have my bits. Honestly. Now this fabric doesn't fray. It is slightly stretch. Well, actually it's got a bit of give in it, should I say, rather than stretch. Stretch is pushing the too far. It's the same on both sides, so quite nice for me because I'm not very good at that. And we do have a choice what stitch we use. Now I should have checked the stitches whilst it was off, shouldn't I? So, oh, this is going to be loud, isn't it? And yes, this is the same as my machine at home, but a newer model, so. Done on one side is I've sewn along the top, and now I am sewing down the sides. I think I've got to do something about this stitch actually. It's not happy, is it? Now all I'm doing is sewing along the sides, and when I get probably 4 inches below the breast line, I'm going to sew in this. So. Now there's 2 ways of doing this. We can either just place it in and then come back and maybe put let's try that one. A piece of elastic under it, just so it takes up the fullness of the dress. So I'm just picturing it now. Yes, so we can just sew a piece of elastic underneath, take the fullness of the dress. Now I've got this on a hemming stitch, which works as a stretch stitch if we're not careful. Let's just go around again. Okay, so I put it on the actual stretch stitch. It's just too slow. Okay, we can just go on a running stitch and I can sort it out later. So, what I'm doing is just coming up to the end now. And reverse stitch. And so if we move the dress along so that we've got to the other side and do the other long seam, we have to judge where we're going to place this piece of decorated embossing. And it's quite important to get it lined up. Now I would say that if we're going to couple of stitches just to tag it in place, what we need is slightly tighter than the dress, but not you know, completely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of inches off, and then I need to make sure that I've got the height down the same as well. So I can do that quite easily by bringing this over and then just lining it up and then placing it under a pin or under my thumb and forefinger. So, but also I need to make sure that this is straight. So there we go, just gone over it. And a lot of these dots have mirrors in it, so it's yeah, do be careful, and you know, it's fine, but you do need to be aware of it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to switch the camera off, and I'm going to sew the top, and I'll probably hem the bottom because you don't really need to see that, and I'll sew up the sides of the sleeves so that they're ready to go in. Okay? Yeah, not too much. So welcome back. I'm just doing the bottom seam now, so I'm literally, any stretch fabric, any silky fabric, you can hold it taut, but you can't pull it. It just bends it. Okay, I've gone over the same line of stitches, a couple of stitches there, just to keep it all in line. So this is what we're left with, really. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew the sleeves on. So I'm going to turn the dress inside out. I've got it all twisted up actually. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I have sewn the line of sleeves together. So okay, put that over there. I know, when I'm sure you can go to a shop and you can say, can I have meters of something, but I always find, or 0.7 of a metre, but I always find that I just buy a metre. So that's the line of stitches I've done. When I get home I'm just going to run it over with the other machine just to get it all nice and non-bunchy. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it needs zigzagging as well. So what I'm going to do, inside out main garment, place the sleeve the right side out and match up the seams at the bottom. Now there's a lot to be said for just teasing it round and checking that it is the right size for the hole. Because if it's slightly too big, then we've got to put a little bit of gather in. Gather looks best at the top rather than the bottom. If not, yeah, we've got a little bit of thinking to do if it doesn't match up. But this matches up perfectly, even though I did it by eye. But because of this type of fabric, I know we can. It's quite forgiving, you know. That's the main thing. I know some people won't sew this sort of fabric, but I find it quite forgiving. So I'm starting on the seam. So, why not? The worst thing is this machine has been used more today than it has been used in the last year. It's quite sad, isn't it? So I'm just keeping an eye on everything else that they don't get tucked up. I've come to the point of the sleeve, so I'm really happy that that's exact. And then I'm just going to come down the back of the sleeve. So if there's any gathering to do, this would be a great place. Now what we can do is, if the sleeve is too big, only slightly, I'm talking less than a centimetre, if we hold it right down like this, then it will just pick up that extra fabric. And if the garment's too small, we can hold it right up like that, and then that will pick up more from the bottom than the top. So we're just teasing it round now, nice and slowly. Make sure that we're not picking up anything at the back. Poor machine. And there we are. Just going over the seam again. Catch the other layer of stitches. It's up to you whether you reverse every time. If I'm doing something in a circle, then I usually just try and catch the stitches. So I'm going to put you on pause at the minute and redo my bobbin. I knew it was running out, so I'm quite lucky. All I have to do now is hem the sleeves and do the piping around the neckline. You can talk. Alright, so I've just threaded my bobbin now and I'm just sewing my other sleeve in. So same again, you know, checking dimensions as I go, and I am whizzing round. Now I have been thinking, this is the binding I've got for the neckline, and I really don't know about...
Your plate is re-risen.
Huh? How did you pour it?
The dough has re-risen.
Oh.
As things happen.
Give it a poke. So yeah, sorry about that. So I'm literally just coming up to the bottom now, keeping an eye on it, making sure that I don't, because I've got the sleeve on the inside this time, I'm making sure that I don't curve it too much. And I'm still undecided whether I'm going to make binding, because I can do, I have enough fabric, or I'm going to use the pink binding. So what I'll do is I'll just lay this out on the table and have a little think, because it's a good thing to do. It's a very good thing. So there we are, and we can either put a bit of elastic there or not, maybe just a couple of tacking stitches. I can trim the neckline down slightly at the front. I don't want it low cut, I just want it there. And all I was worried about is the turquoise and the white. But I think it looks better with, yeah, I'll be kind to myself. I'll use the shop bought one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open out the neckline here and match up those two seams. And when we cut it so that it was a neckline at the back. And we cut them the same. And all I'm going to do is very riskily is take a smiley face off the front there. So that's what I've taken. Held it up, folded it and cut it. So then this neckline, it's not revealing or anything. You'd still call it a straight neckline. It just comes down slightly. So yes, I know. If I was home alone, I would just check that it went over my head at this point, because there's a lot to be said for checking that sort of thing. And you don't need to, you know, you just need to do that. Duck your head forward and do it. Hokey cokey. So we've got our binding. Good idea. Start at the back, not at the front. You don't want the join at the front. If you do it exactly halfway, then it can look really untidy. And if you do it halfway round again, then it can... Yeah, okay, what am I saying? It's doing it... Don't do it on the seam. Don't do it in the middle. Do it sort of off-centre, and then that's usually the best look. And we have two choices. We can fold it over and do it, or we can unfold it, sew along that one, and then fold it over. Okay, so let's chance it and fold it over. Because there's nothing wrong with this machine. It's just makes a hell of a lot of noise, I think. There's no reason why it can't do it, is what I'm saying. Okay, so very slowly and adjusting at every point. There's a lot to be said for sewing an inch before you go on to sewing the fabric. And there's an awful lot to be said for making sure you haven't got your bobbin threads caught up. So, yeah, that's too small for me to do. Not without my foot. So what I'm going to do is, I've tried it and I've failed. Now if I unpick it, I'm going to damage the thread so much that it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it, and then I'm going to trim the opposite side. So again, folding it over to the seams, I've got it held firmly in the middle when those seams are lined up, and then I can just trim it. And we are talking of 1/8 of an inch, probably 3 millimeters, so yeah. And a nice sharp edge is great for binding. Okay, so we know we have enough binding in the spare fabric to go and do that. The other job I need to do is I need to hem the cuffs. So I can get that started while you're here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over once, twice. Yeah, a stretch stitch if you've got it. If not, we're just going to keep it on here. So yeah, gently over the seam. When you've sewn them out, you can then pull it round. Entirely up to you whether you try and thread it through the arm. I don't have the best of luck with that. So yeah, it's just personal preference. You can sew it like this, or I'll do the other one through the arm. I suppose you could say it's a habit. What am I doing? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to get the other sleeve and I'm going to turn it inside out to do this, because you know the other thing is that I didn't need to turn it inside out. And then fold it over once, twice, and then push it in the sleeve like that. So it's really up to you. I suppose if you were doing a lot, then doing it this way would be better, because you don't have to adjust it. You can just carry on sewing. Whereas if you do it the other way around, then you'd be pulling it round all the time. Okay, I'm going to cut my binding and I'll be right back. Hiya! So, okay, going to do my own binding, which I've cut. Yes, I've had a little try on of it. I've got it on now. And it reminds me terribly of the Jesus dresses that they dress children up in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the neckline, and that should raise my bust line upwards, so it should look better. Okay, give me a second. Yes, and I suppose the thing we've got to remember, well, we don't actually have to, is that we don't want to trim the back of it. But it actually doesn't matter at this point, because we haven't stitched the banding on. So what I've done is I've pinched it again so that both my neck seams are together, and then I'm going to lay it flat. Now I can mark this if I wanted to, or I can just guess it. Now I think I can safely get away with taking 2 inches off. Entirely up to you whether you mark it, pin it, or anything else like that. So, and because we've folded it, we know it's straight. or equal, actually, equal's better. So there we go, we've taken another smiley face off. It's a smiley face. Okay, so binding. If you're making your own binding, then it's best to cut it on the diagonal so it's got a bit of stretch in it. Or if you're using slightly stretchy fabric, you can probably get away with not doing it on and just do it on straight. So what I've got is the dress inside out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a line of fabric along there so that I can fold it over. So inside out and fabric right side down. Now because this is going to be slightly wider than, did we just come unthreaded? Slightly wider than the bias binding that we bought, we can get away with being a bit more haphazard. So I'm just coming up to the front loop here. And following it round. Now, yeah, the problem I just had then was the weight of the garment was pulling it all down. So I started again 3/4 round, and I'm just coming back to the beginning. And I am going to find my scissors all the way over there. So now what we need to do is we need to turn the whole garment inside out, and I do need my scissors. So, starting at the same point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start sewing on the first bit of fabric, and then when I'm coming round I can sew on the second bit of fabric and I can fold it over and keep it nice and neat. So all I'm doing is I'm lying it next to the old seam, and the old seam should give me a little bit of structure so I can just follow it round. So in a way it's best not to make it too big. So there we are, folding, placing under the machine. Yeah, it's a good idea to lie it flat on the table if it was a problem. I'll put it over there slightly, I'll have less of an issue. And away we go. So there we go. Got to take up a bit of fullness as well, which is always good. What I do when I take up fullness is if I sew a centimetre and then I literally just push it at the excess on the top layer, and then it just picks it up really. It makes life a lot easier. Okay, when you're sewing this sort of stuff though, you're more likely to pick up something from the lead. So rather than doing the temptation of sewing it like that, I'm just sewing it like that. So, and what it does is it doesn't pick up puckers, but it does pick up the fullness of the fabric. Yep, so here I've got my seam, I've got that firmly in hand, and I'm just taking up the excess so that you don't get that horrible twist. So yeah, I've just got some loose threads from my previous bit of sewing, and rather than trimming them or even worrying about them, I was just tucking them in. I'm so naughty. Okay, so I'm coming up to the beginning of the back now. I did warn you it's paddling pool weather, didn't I? It is really quite warm down here today. So okay, as I'm coming up to the end, I'm starting to prepare to literally fold this over and then keep on sewing. So I've taken the end and I've literally just pushed that inside. Nice lightweight fabric, it's not going to complain about anything at all. And then I've laid it on the previous line of stitches. So everything's tucked in, including a few bits that probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. Lovely. Now the only thing to decide is how we are going to attach the front of that lovely piece of binding. Not binding, I suppose it's trim, isn't it? So you get this round the right way. Okay, so what's happened here is I've got the back and this is still loose. So what I'm going to do is put it at the front. So it's very easy when you're learning to sew or when you've been sewing for a while, is to see something like that and just panic. But it's loose, it can go at the back or the front, and yes, it goes that way round. So what I need to do now is I need to either run the sewing machine along or probably best off hand sewing every few inches or so, just to keep that in shape. So yeah, I know. It's such a shame really that I've got a mirror in here actually. I don't know if this is going to work at all. There we are, there's our lovely dress. Alright, thank you ever so much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share.